Good afternoon, and welcome to the Osher Lifelong Learning Institute at Berkshire Community College. My name is Carol Allman Morton. I'm going to offer a land acknowledgement before we begin, and then a few short announcements, and then on with the show. Gratitude and humility, we acknowledge that those of us in the Berkshires are learning, speaking, and gathering on the ancestral homelands of the Mohican, or the indigenous peoples of this land. Despite tremendous hardship in being forced from here, today their community resides in Wisconsin and is known as the Stockbridge-Muncie community. They honor and respect to their ancestors past and present as we commit to building a more inclusive and equitable space for all. To learn more about programming at Ollie at Berkshire Community College, you can check out our website, berkshireollie.org. We have a number of programs coming up this month, and you can see our full listing of events at berkshireollie.org/events. Registration for our spring semester is now open, and classes begin the first week of April. To see that listing, it's berkshireollie.org/spring 2024. As we go, if you have questions, please put them in the chat, and then we'll pass the mic around in the room. And if you need to write things down, don't be afraid to do that. All right, so let me introduce our speakers. Today, we welcome Samantha Anderson and Rimi Chakraborty. Excuse me, Chakraborty, right?
Yeah,
Good. Ms. Chakraborty is from the Azores and is a keynote speaker, author, yoga teacher, and leadership consulting coach for groups, teams, and individuals dedicated to developing conscious leaders. Anderson is based in West Stockbridge and is a board-certified health and wellness coach with decades of experience working with women leaders as a nonprofit and philanthropy consultant. You can learn more about their work at rootsilience.com. And I'll turn it over to you. Thank you.
Oh, wow. Well, thank you. And what an honor to be here. It's such a pleasure to be speaking and to be part of this impactful series. Thank you for those of you here in person and for everyone on the webinar. So for today's talk, we're going to spend a little bit of time introducing ourselves and why we came into this work. Once we share a little bit about what brought us to follow this path, we're going to share with you about this new word that we coined, Rootsilience. You may be wondering already what it is, so we'll get into that. We'll then share our revolutionary framework, which is really exciting, and you'll all have a chance to experience it. And there'll be a reading excerpt, as well as a practical exercise embodying some of the themes that we discussed today. And those of you online may want to have handy just a piece of paper and a pen. And those of you in person, we've brought some paper and pens for you. Don't need to shuffle yet. That'll be later. And then we'll, of course, have some time for Q&A. And for those of you interested in supporting this work and wanting to learn more, we have some books available in person for signing. So it's a really exciting talk that we've got lined up. So I really came into this work with the desire to redefine success. Now, my family is from India originally, and I'm a first-generation American. And I was raised with these very strong values of success in my family. And as all of us have had experiences from our childhood that have shaped us, my parents' divorce and the resulting alcoholism in my family led me to really focus on success as a way to fix what I felt responsible for. I thought that if I got perfect grades and straight A's and reached the top in whatever I was doing, that maybe mom wouldn't drink and maybe dad would be around. Luckily, things got better in my family life, and this stint towards success drove me. I ended up going to the University of Pennsylvania, an Ivy League undergrad engineer, and I graduated magna cum laude. I then went on to get my MBA from MIT Sloan. Turns out that chasing perfection had its upsides. However, it worked until it started to take a toll. I started to realize that I was no longer living authentically. And I'll give you an example. I noticed that I would fill up my schedule. So if one of you had invited me for coffee back then, we would have had to plan out weeks in advance. Because I was so busy filling my schedule, I didn't want to deal with the fact that what I was chasing, this success, this top of the mountain, so to speak, was really an elusive dangling carrot. I was also working hard and yet playing harder. It was the culture of the company I was in. We were all doing it. And that meant more and more networking with more and more alcohol, which turned into more and more abusing of alcohol and recreational substances on a far more regular basis than anyone would like to admit. That started to take a toll. I started to see that affect my relationship, my friends, my sense of self-worth. And I started to realize that I had somehow associated my achievements and my accolades with my self-worth. I thought that somehow if I was successful, I was lovable, I was better, I was good enough. And yet my body, behavior, and mind were screaming at me that this wasn't the way. On top of the examples I gave thus far, my physical body started to show me when things were out of alignment. I kept getting these chronic infections and I kept treating the symptom, yet not the cause, kept popping antibiotics. And it wasn't until I finally started to pay attention to the fact that my body was showing me, my behavior was showing me, and my emotions were showing me that I wasn't living aligned with my values. I wasn't living authentically. I cared about making a difference. And in the job that I was working in, I simply wasn't doing that. And so I started to listen. And that listening led me to move to the Azores, Portugal. Has anyone heard of the Azores? Or okay, a couple people here, maybe many of you on the webinar. My husband, my now husband, I met in Boston, and he's originally from there. And so we did our wedding in 2013, which then started this bigger conversation about what do we want to do with our lives. This led us to design a business around our values in his hometown in San Miguel. And for anyone who doesn't know the Azores, it's an archipelago of 9 volcanic islands, and it's part of Portugal, direct flight from Boston and other cities on the East Coast. And we started to live our values. It wasn't easy. We went through some startup challenges as any company would, but we actually started living in this way where we were able to do something that lit us up and enabled us to thrive. And this is what I want to highlight is that when we speak about leaders and leadership, because this book is a leadership book, and I want to give a definition of a leader that I think is meaningful to us all, which is that anyone who is thriving and shining her light is leading. You might be thriving in the way that you lead in your community because of your following your passions and doing what you love and contributing to your community. That's leading. You may be leading because you are, or you were, or you will be a manager or a senior executive, of course. And you may be leading your family in the way that you thrive, the way that you light up your children, your nieces, your nephews, your people in your community and your family. And so when we speak about leadership, I think it's really important to identify this. And as I mentioned, what brought me to this work was redefining success. And now I can be a bridge to bringing this thriving, this light, this new expanded definition of leadership to the work that we do with Rootsilience.
So the story that Rimi shared is compiled as well in different areas of the book. The book is organized with some stories from our real lives, and I'm now going to read an excerpt from the book that describes a little bit about my why for coming into this work. So, in the early 2000s, my longstanding business partnership with my father and a consultancy focused on workplace culture came to a screeching halt when he suffered a fatal heart attack during a family vacation. It was a shock to us all, as a photo of him taken just a few hours earlier shows a healthy, fit man full of life and gleaming as he held his grandchild in the pool. That sudden tragedy was coupled with a busy, stressful life with 3 young children and a marriage that was hanging on by its shoestrings. I tried to keep it all together and to be a superhero to meet all the expectations I had for myself and those of others. But in short, I was a mess. To cope, I turned to unhealthy habits to numb my brain from all the noise around me and to escape the demands. I drank too much, I ate processed foods and a lot of sugar, and I slept too little, if at all. And as I turned 50, approaching the age that my father died, my unhealthy habits started to take a toll. I started noticing a host of health issues such as hair loss and bloating, brain fog, and a nagging anxiety, which led me to seek medical attention. With each symptom, I was sent to a different doctor, focusing on a different specialty, and yet none were able to address the root cause of my health concerns. Finally, a dear friend introduced me to a functional medicine practitioner trained to examine how the body functions as an interconnected whole system, identifying and addressing the root cause of disease, not just individual symptoms siloed into organs. We discovered the root cause of my inflammation. I removed the triggers that had caused the brain fog, the anxiety, and such. And just as a tree's health is rooted in the unseen roots below, functional medicine emphasizes treating the whole body, not just surface symptoms. Recognizing this, I pursued training in functional medicine, aiming to heal myself and then others. And I graduated from the Functional Medicine Coaching Academy and became board certified shortly before the onset of the COVID-19 pandemic, embarking on a journey to offer holistic healing. That journey led me to the Azores, where I met Rimi. My husband also has Azorean lineage, and we go back and forth quite frequently. And on one of those trips, we decided to stay at the gorgeous Eco Lodge that Rimi and Joao, her husband, own and operate. And as you can probably see, Rimi is a very special human being. And the minute that I saw her and started to have conversations, we immediately fell in love and we knew we wanted to do something together. We weren't entirely sure what that might be, but it was something. And so we started to talk. We talked on that trip, which was actually in January of 2020. And we decided we were going to plan a retreat at her Eco Lodge, and that was going to be scheduled for April of that year, 2020. So I returned home. We got to planning, and we scheduled weekly Zoom conversations where we sort of started the process of planning out this retreat. I think probably everybody here remembers what happened in that spring rather, of 2020. So all of our plans came to a screeching halt. We obviously had to cancel that retreat. And nonetheless, Rimi and I decided to stay in contact each week. We had an hour-long Zoom conversation to just keep the flow going. And we were both dealing with a lot. I mean, Rimi's lodge was closed due to the pandemic. I was living in Brooklyn, New York at the time. And as you probably remember, New York City was the epicenter of a lot of what was going on with the pandemic. And we were both holding a lot. And so that hour respite from all of what we were dealing with was very meaningful. And we decided to just randomly record those Zoom conversations. And we have the recording, May 19th, 2020. I had been hearing over and over again the word resilience. We need to spring back from this pandemic. Our immune systems need to be resilient. We have to be strong. We have to persevere. We have to spring back, jump back. And I just said to Rimi, gosh, I am tired of being told to be resilient. It is just not enough for what we're dealing with right now. We need to dig down. We need to grow some roots. We need to be grounded and not just be like a weeble wobble bouncing back and forth like resilience. We need to be, and I said, root resilient. And Rimi and I just, our mouths sort of dropped and we were like, what did you just say? Now, obviously that word does not exist in the English language, but it was meaningful. We knew it meant something. And I had been spending a lot of time, as much time as I could outside in the park. Prospect Park wasn't far from my home. And I had been spending a lot of time looking at trees and looking at the roots of those trees and realizing that what we see above is just a fraction of what exists underground as the roots. And I felt like we needed to build something that was oriented, suggested that concept of groundedness and rootedness. And so Rimi and I got to planning.
Beautiful. So then you may be wondering, why does this matter? And I just want to put this all into context for you. So women-led businesses, this is from a HBR, Harvard Business Review report in 2021, and there's since been several studies that show that women-led businesses are more profitable, provide higher return on investments, and they provide higher quality experiences for the customers and for the teams. Yet women lack representation in leadership. Today, we have the most women ever in the senior role in this country, and we're at 8%. 8% of women are CEOs in the United States today, and women are still making 81 cents to the dollar compared to a man. In addition, a study from the World Economic Forum in 2020 showed that women have about 30% more neurons firing in our brains at any given time than men, which makes us more empathic, more higher emotional intelligence, and it makes women more vulnerable to the negative effects of stress and anxiety. Women are, in fact, more likely to develop Alzheimer's and dementia than men, and women today are experiencing harsher effects of alcoholism, which for the first time ever, women actually exceed men in binge drinking, and women are facing the consequences much more worse than men. Finally, women are exiting the workforce faster than ever before. A lot of this is due to the caregiver burden that happened during the pandemic. It was women that were taking care of their loved ones more. And to this day, we're still seeing for every woman that is promoted into senior leadership, 2 women are leaving the workforce. And so there's something missing here. There's a missing rung on the leadership ladder for women. And again, when I say leadership, really think of this as how are you thriving in your communities, families, and lives. But there's something amiss here. So when Samantha and I came up with our idea for the retreat, which was put on hold, of course, we decided to start running a series of online courses. We took a framework that we hypothesized, which was combining aspects of emotional, physical, and behavioral health with this path to leadership. And we ran the pilot program and a few subsequent online courses and saw transformational results. The women in those programs started to experience a way to recognize their unique signs of ease and dis-ease before going off center, before it becoming a screeching alarm or severe burnout. Women in the course started to decipher their behavioral patterns, in fact, and to notice where that could have been a sign for them that was affecting their well-being. Women in the program really started to identify their go-to areas. And so the journey to health and well-being wasn't this one size fits all, you should do this and that and the other, and it's overwhelming. It became a really clear way to understand, where do I need to focus and what works for me? What can I do about it? And finally, a big part of the framework we developed was to shift away from the numbing and the compartmentalizing and the avoiding, which, yes, we've been there, I've been there. It's a defense mechanism. It may work in the short term, but in the long run, if you're not listening to the whispers, they become screeching alarms. And so our framework, let me go into what it is. So we mapped a tool from positive psychology to the chakra system. And what you're seeing here, the image is the 7 traditional chakras, which the chakras come from the same ancient texts that gave rise to yoga and meditation and mindfulness. And it is not the objective of our book to prove or disprove the chakras, whether you're familiar with them and you are a big believer in them, or whether you've never heard of them, or maybe they seem a little woo-woo. I want you to think of them as a way to organize conversations around health and well-being. What you see on the leaves of the image are the VIA character strengths. So VIA, Virtues in Action, is a tool that Samantha gained a significant amount of expertise with through her coaching training. And we've mapped them to the chakras. So for example, bravery is a character strength. We've mapped it to the root chakra. Perspective is a character strength. We've mapped to the third eye. And the way we developed this was through those initial courses. We tested the framework. We tested where we mapped which strength. We got feedback. We updated the model. We tweaked and improved. And today, what this gives us is for the first time, we have a way to connect behavior, as evidenced by the VIA character strengths, to physical and emotional signs of well-being. So this is the magic of our framework. So now, once you know where to look by taking your Rootsilience leadership map, which you'll all have access to, it's available for free on our website, we then provide 3 branches. So conscious leadership, healing foods, and mind-body integration. These are now the tools. So you discovered where you're vulnerable and what your unique signs are, whether they're at the behavioral or the emotional or the physical level. And now you get to expand your toolkit with a host of practices. Each chapter in the book has the practical exercises, one of which we'll do today. It has recipes and foods, as well as practices to bring balance to each of these areas, supplemented through an online portal where you can go beyond the book and experience these guided practices live. And so I want to just go over the framework overall and why this is such a unique approach. And it's not a one-size-fits-all that you just look at once and maybe forget about. This is a way for you to continually come back to yourself with this lens of compassionate self-inquiry, because we want to make sure that when we speak about what's maybe not right with us or what's going wrong, that we're not using it as a way to judge or harshly criticize ourselves. And so first, you take your Rootsilience leadership map, which I referenced earlier. You can take it right on our website, rootsilience.com, and you can go to the leadership map. It takes about 20 minutes. You get your VIA character strengths as they're ordered uniquely for you, specifically your greater strengths. What are the strengths that you lead with, things that you are naturally more gifted in? And then what are the lesser strengths, the lower bottom 5 that are maybe ones that you maybe want to cultivate? And we love this framework because it's all strengths from positive psychology, no weaknesses. And then you identify your unique signs of balance and imbalance. And so through the map, you'll then be guided through which physical and emotional signs you may experience. And we'll go through an example in a moment. But you then start to notice that, when I get that chronic headache, maybe I shouldn't just pop a pill. Maybe it's telling me that I've got too much stimulation and it's time to shut down the screens. Or, maybe that stomach upset that I always get when I overdo it, maybe I notice the grumblings before it turns into me totally being flat out and needing a week off from everything. And so the third step then is then incorporating the tools, foods, and practices based on your map. So if you have the stomach upset, for example, you might then go to the foods that are anti-inflammatory and the recipes in the book that provide gut healing. You may go to the practices that are resetting your nervous system, things like yoga nidra and tools to balance. And then the fourth step is you're then, by paying attention and by expanding your toolkit, you are then redefining success. You are then starting to notice what helps you thrive, what brings you joy, what activities are you starting to think maybe this is causing some of those stomach upsets or this behavioral tendency to lash out or what have you. And you start to nurture your roots. And then it continues because we're always like a swinging pendulum going from one side to the other, always coming back to balance. This framework lives and grows with you. So an example here is Samantha's going to provide us.
So I have taken my VIA character strengths many, many times. And you may notice this when you do it for yourself. Your character strengths are generally what you're born with. I mean, that you imbue them naturally, as Rimi said. And so my strengths are basically my strengths. And one of them, usually like number 1 or number 2, is the strength of love. I have a few friends here, and I think they probably would say that is true about me. So love. Love is my signature strength. And the heart chakra is where we placed love, understandably, right? And I want to read a little bit of an excerpt from the book, another little story that I tell, and then I'm going to read directly from the chapter from the heart chakra. You can see before I read that there are optimal uses of each of the strengths, and then you might tend, like Rimi said, to swing out of balance like a pendulum, whether you might be overusing a particular strength or underusing a particular strength. So, like a pendulum going back and forth, and then optimal right in the center or balanced. So, for me, when I'm optimally using my strength of love, I have genuine, warm, close relationships. I'm bonded closely to my friends and family and community. But maybe when I'm overusing that particular character strength, I can be sugary sweet. I can be a little touchy feely or clingy, codependent, etc. And when I'm underusing that character strength of love, I might actually isolate or close myself off, shield myself, close my heart. Okay. So each of the strengths has its optimal use, and we go over each of those in the book, and then how we might be overusing or underusing. And that's really the work of our framework. So let me read. As I mentioned, my father died of a heart attack on a warm, sunny afternoon in April 2001. He was 59, seemingly healthy, vibrant in body and mind. I was his partner in our family business, and his death left an empty void, not only in my personal life, but also professionally. I closed the business shortly after he died and pivoted to work in a new sector, helping nonprofits develop revenue generating business strategies. While I tried to rise up from my grief and explore a new professional path, a heavy sadness permeated my life with pain. His death was a huge blow, creating an empty hole that consumed my body until there was hardly anything left. Meanwhile, I numbed out with alcohol and busyness to distract myself from the pain while leading an intense home life, raising 3 small children, rarely stopping for a moment to pause, feel, or think. It felt too overwhelming to open my heart to the loss. So I clamped down hard, compartmentalizing the pain into a container under lock and key. Over the years, this had an immense impact on my health. I had been carefully monitored by a cardiologist in the years after my father passed, and as I entered the decade that he died in my 50s, we saw plaques starting to grow on my heart. The years of numbing, distracting, and hardening to the pain had caught up to me. I recognize now that this armor had protected my heart, but it had also prevented me from truly healing and growing. As we go through life, we all experience pain, hurt, and trauma. It's a natural part of the human experience. But when we don't process those experiences, they can linger in the form of emotional scars and cause us to build up defenses that prevent us from truly connecting with others and ourselves. Removing the armor from my heart has been a daunting task. It required bravery, vulnerability, and a willingness to face my pain head on. But it is so worth it. By doing so, I am giving myself the chance to grow and live a more fulfilling life. It's time to heal, soften, and take the armor off my heart, not for anyone else, but for myself. So, as you can see, from the example that I shared with my overuse and the underuse, this is an example of what the map looks like when you take it. Actually, this is a screenshot from the book. And I would check the various physical signs that I experience myself, again, personalized, individualized. So I would check blockages and calcification on my arteries, some heart palpitations, some high blood pressure, etc. And then on the right-hand side, yes, I've been a doormat. I will admit that. I have sometimes some difficulty receiving love. Sometimes I can people please, etc. I have some stuckness in my grief, etc. So I would kind of check all those boxes. And voila, after you finish the Rootsilience leadership map, your personalized report would appear and you would see exactly which chapter of the book you would need to turn to. And for me, it would be this heart chakra chapter. So I'm now going to read a bit more from the chapter. The illustration that you see on the screen here is an illustration, and actually the book, I'll just sort of flip through it. It has these gorgeous images throughout. It's very colorful. And we have a colleague who is a beautiful illustrator. She's trained in Ayurvedic medicine, and she's a yoga practitioner, and she designed these images. So I will read here. Our Rootsilience heart chakra image represents the divine portal to our soul essence as a blossoming bouquet of gratitude growing out of the vase of unity. The prayer plant, who folds her leaves nightly in a gesture of thanks, has 12 leaves, each of which represents the traditional 12 qualities of the human heart: bliss, peace, harmony, love, understanding, empathy, clarity, purity, unity, compassion, kindness, and forgiveness. The rich green color represents the life force energy of unconditional love that is within and all around us. And the two intersecting triangles that form a six-pointed star represent the unity that exists at the heart. The upward pointing triangle represents the three chakras above, our connection to source or spirit and to masculine energy. The downward pointing triangle represents the three chakras below, our connection to the earth and feminine energy. Regardless of the mud of pain, grief, and hardship, this blossoming green abundance is at our core, situated in the deep well of our heart. The key themes of the heart chakra are what really is love? Is there love that is deeper and more profound than that between lovers or between a mother and child? It is here we learn our greatest life lessons around forgiveness and letting go, when we can find balance between how much we give and how much we receive. We learn to truly love ourselves and to expand into our infinite essence. Key leadership challenges in the heart chakra might be giving too much, people pleasing, difficulty receiving, or offering poor self-care, inability to forgive or be stuck in grieving or holding on to the past. Some key physical signs of imbalance could include breast cancer, heart disease, lung or respiratory disease. They're all found here in the heart chakra. Key emotional and behavioral signs of imbalance: stuck in grief and sadness, unable to forgive, vindictiveness. The location of the chakra is found in the chest, behind the sternum, at the center of our thoracic spine. And this chakra's functions are found in the heart, the thymus gland, the lungs, the breast, the shoulders, the arms, and through the circulatory and the respiratory systems. The element associated with the heart chakra is air, allowing for expansion of breath and the circulation of our blood, as well as our infinite capacity to love. The color is green. I'm wearing green today. It represents harmony, balance, and a deep connection to nature and the natural world. It also signifies love and the ability to give and receive love openly and unconditionally. And I'm going to just read another just very brief excerpt. Why self-love isn't selfish. One of the safest and most effective ways to take down the walls and clear the minefields of the heart is to cultivate compassion and love for yourself. However, women have been programmed for centuries to believe we need to do and give to everyone else first before we get to ourselves. Our culture celebrates women martyrs or those who sacrifice themselves for their work, their parents, partners, children. We may convince ourselves that we just need to finish, insert whatever that is, and then we can take a break. Or I'll take some me time when the kids are older. Or I'm here to serve and help others. So any time I'm spending on myself is wasted when I could be serving others. Maybe subconsciously, we're simply finding excuses not to be with our whole selves. Deep down, there could be a lack of nurturing for ourselves because somewhere along our lives, we didn't receive the nurturing we needed. The journey to loving ourselves is a lifelong journey, but finding ways to be compassionate with yourself enables you to connect with and experience the real unconditional love that you are. Being compassionate with ourselves is about finding balance between how much we are giving and how much we are receiving. Think of your day as spirals of energy. The amount of time and energy you experience putting yourself out there and being on needs to be balanced by the ways you come back and spiral into yourself. Otherwise, you're in an overextended slinky that just falls over. Again, resilience versus rootsilience, having lost its bounce and shape. So we're going to do a practical exercise now. So if you're out there in the universe watching this on Zoom, we encourage you to grab a piece of paper and a pen, and we have brought some for the folks who are here in the room. There are little desk things that you can pull out to make it easier to write.
Perfect. Well, so as we get settled into finding our paper and pen, hydrating if you need to, we're going to do a short embodiment practice, which will then lead to this leadership exercise. And so if you are able and if you would like, we're going to stand. You don't have to stand. But if you are able to, feel free. I'm actually going to just take my blazer off so I have a little space. And so I just invite you, however you are, seated or standing, to let your arms relax. You can put your paper and pen down for now. You won't need it until after this first part of the embodiment. So you can set that aside if you have it in your hand. And just take a moment to notice if it feels okay to close your eyes, or just halfway open, maybe gazing toward the floor. Just notice if the crown of your head is indeed over your heart and your heart is over your tailbone. Just take a moment to notice, what is it like to breathe into the space of your heart chakra? Just observing, there's no wrong answer or wrong way. There's just simply an observation of what's it like to breathe into the center of your chest. Where is there expansion? Maybe where isn't there? If there's any places of resistance or pressure. Take 3 breaths together here. If you want to exhale with me here, we'll breathe in and out the nose. Place a hand at the heart if that feels appropriate for you, and inhale into the space of the anahata or the heart chakra. And exhale, see if you can bring your awareness down into your feet. Inhale, breathing into the center of your chest, as much in front as behind. Exhale, just feeling your feet on the ground, feeling really supported and grounded in this moment. Deep breath in, filling up the sides of your ribs as well. And exhale. Then as you continue on your own, I'm going to invite us into some really simple movements to open up the thoracic spine, or the part of your spine that's just behind the heart. So you can open your eyes if you like, and on your next inhale, you can spread your arms like a cactus and open and arch as if you could take a little back bend just to your degree of comfort. And then as you exhale, you can bring your chin towards your chest and bring your elbows and your forearms together, rounding in the upper back. We'll just do 2 more like that. Inhale, spread the palms wide, feel all of your fingers really expanding. Maybe the chin reaches up to the sky. And then exhale, just a little round, chin to chest, lifting up through the shoulder blades. And then one more time, just feeling that you are creating spaciousness in the area of the heart chakra. Exhale when it's your exhale. And then slowly, we're just going to lower our hands to our rib cage. Now you can place them to either side like I'm doing, or for some of you, it might be more comfortable to simply cross your arms and place your hands on your ribs, whichever one of those works for you. And just a couple of breaths to feel the expansiveness in the area of our lungs. And so on your next inhale, see if you can telescope your ribs. So as if you could lift one rib off of the one beneath it and get a little wider in your ribs. Sipping in a little bit more if that's okay for you. And then a gentle exhale through the nose, maybe even a little pressure on your hands, just getting completely empty. Two more like that. An inhale, expanding in the ribs, widening, telescoping the ribs. Exhale, a little gentle pressure if you've got your hands here. One more time, deep breath in. Gently release your hands into your lap or down by your sides. Going to come back to where we started, which was simply bringing your awareness into the space of your heart. So I invite you again to bring your awareness here. That may simply mean being really curious about your breath connection, spaciousness, texture. Notice what, if anything, has shifted in just those 9 breaths that we took together, 9 or so breaths. Slowly, have you, if you want to stay standing, you can. If you want to sit, you can sit down. We're going to go into a little visualization followed by the journaling. So I'd like you to now imagine your favorite tree. I'm talking about roots and Samantha's inspiration and my inspiration. And I'd like you to bring to heart mind a tree that you know and you love, or one from your imagination. Imagine or feel or sense that you are standing with your back or sitting with your back to this tree. And lean back a little bit as if you were leaning and resting into the support of this beautiful tree's trunk. And take a moment in your visualization or in your imagination and look up at the branches of your tree. Noticing how the branches are, shape, leaves that are on them, that are growing from them. Acknowledging all of the roles that these branches play. There's a nest in one. There's some welcome shade in the warmer months the branches provide. And maybe there are or will be beautiful buds and flowers that these branches support, and maybe even fruit. Acknowledging all of the roles that these branches play. Now slowly starting to look down in your imagination or in your visualization and notice the roots of your tree. Been sensing or imagining yourself sitting by the roots of your tree. And noticing what you see above ground. And noticing what you sense below ground. The many roots that provide nourishment, nutrients, all of the water for the tree. absorbing everything around this beautiful tree to nourish the tree and its branches and its flowers and fruit. Taking a moment to acknowledge all that the roots provide, whether they are in fact seen or unseen. Take a moment to step a little away from your tree and your imagination and take a moment in your way. Thank the tree. Give it a hug. Honor it in your own way, placing a hand on the trunk and a hand on your heart. Slowly, we're going to come into our journaling. So I invite you to sit down if you're not already. I'm going to invite you to draw your tree. So we're going to start with drawing your trunk and the branches. And in the branches, I'd just like you to label the different roles that you play in your life right now. For example, maybe you are a mother or a sister or a daughter or whatever familial role you play. You would have a branch and label it with that role. Maybe you have a community you lead or you have a role in your day-to-day job. That's another branch that you would label. And let the size of your branches be commensurate with the amount of energy that you put into those roles. Okay? I'm going to give you a few moments to draw and label your tree. I'm not going to show it to anyone, so you don't need to worry about what it looks like. As you do this, I just invite you to notice your breath. All of the areas in your life that you are giving, all of the areas of your life you are giving of your time, of your energy, of your attention. Some branches may have offshoots, right? So family could have many members, big branch with many offshoots, whatever way you draw that for you. As much as you can, just make the size of the branch or the thickness of the branch commensurate with your energy that you put into it. A lot of energy into your volunteer work or your job or whatever. Let that be shown with the size of your branch. So if you're still drawing your branches, there's no rush, but I'm going to guide us into now drawing the roots, if you haven't already. I'd like you similarly to notice and consider what are the ways that you are nourished. You know, for example, do you have a community that you're a part of that nourishes you? Do you have a mindfulness practice or a movement practice that nourishes you? Do you notice that maybe some of your branches are also your roots? So thinking like a weeping willow, like maybe the family is a role you play and you give to, but your family also nourishes you. But again, I want you to draw the roots, the size of the roots, in line with the amount of nourishment that you receive. So try to make the larger roots the ones that really feed you, and the maybe smaller, shorter, thinner roots, the ones that, maybe you do once a month or once in a while. And this is right now. This is sort of this season, not like in an ideal world, I do all these things, more like right now, as in March 2024. What's feeding you? What's nourishing you? Again, noticing your breath as you draw. And there's, again, no right or wrong answer. You're not going to share this with anyone unless you want to. I'm not going to ask you to show and tell. Roots are ways that you receive. Roots are where do you receive? Who do you receive from? Who nourishes you? What nourishes you? Give it another 2 minutes, whether you're still working on your roots or your branches. If you've already finished, I invite you to breathe and expand the space of your heart. Maybe take those 9 slow breaths again. So if you have now finished your branches and your roots, I'm going to invite you to turn your drawing upside down for a moment and ask yourself, does it still look like a tree? Okay, maybe a little bit. So just a reminder, Samantha mentioned it earlier, but the root is far more expansive and much, much larger in size and expansiveness than the branches. And most of us have much shorter roots, much smaller, thinner, narrower roots than we have branches. Most of us, not everybody. And so the next part of this reflection, this is where you may want to jot some notes down, is to consider, well, what season is your tree in? So first, if you think about, we're coming into spring, we're coming into this blossoming time of the year, which is a very celebrated time. Growing, blooming, more, bounty, beauty, yay! Like we celebrate that in all aspects of society. But your tree, where you are in your life right now may not be, right? And so then you can think about whether you might be in fall, for example. Is your tree in the fall where you've just been working to shed, that you've had a realization that maybe you weren't balanced and you're shedding. And your tree maybe has more roots because you're gathering energy toward whatever your next chapter may be, for example. Maybe your tree is in winter, it's in hibernation. It's been an intense year, couple of years. And so maybe your tree's in hibernation. So the question is, what season is your tree in? And then just noticing, I have them up here on this slide, where could you be more balanced? Where could you balance the roots and the branches? You know, at my place in the Azores, Samantha mentioned our Lodge and Learning Center, we have fruit trees, and we need to prune the branches in order to get fruit. We don't prune, we won't get fruit because there's just more and more branches growing every which way, and they don't focus the energy towards actually resulting in anything. And so how could you be more balanced? What do you need to prune? How do you strengthen your roots? Or what fertilizer even do you need? You can think of it that way. So we're going to move into some discussion and sharing. And so those of you on the webinar are going to type in your comments, right? And those of you here can certainly raise a hand with a microphone. And this is, we certainly also have time for Q&A. This is more just sharing around the exercise, but oops, here we go. Great. So I'd love to hear about the exercise from those of you who had any conclusions. You know, what was it like to have your tree? Questions in the chat. Yes. Okay. And what season is it in, or what did you gain from doing this exercise? Are we balanced? Where could we find maybe more of that? Audience here. Just wait for the microphone, just so, yeah. Yeah, because for the Zoom people.
Hi, my name is Barbara. I drew a willow tree, which has lots and lots of branches. I don't know that I could fill all of them up, but I chose it because to me, a willow is flexible. It really moves with the wind, and I feel most aligned with it as water because it has that motion, real motion. So I think, you know, I'm trying to figure out, like, I don't really want to analyze that. I just want to feel into it. The roots were almost as long as the branches, and they were in full bloom. So it was summer. And I've been thinking a lot about blooming as a woman getting older. What is it that what is blooming for me as I enter a different phase of my life?
Beautiful share.
And I do need more self-love.
Mm.
That's for sure.
Here, here. Anyone else in the here?
I drew a copper beech. It is huge. It is majestic. It is naughty. It is, it's it's the king, the queen of anyone's garden.
Wow.
One of the things I love about the copper beech is that it holds its leaves all winter, and it doesn't drop its leaves until the new petiole grows out and a new leaf comes out, and it pushes the old away. So the old stays with the tree until the new arrives.
Wow.
And I love that majesty of the tree. I also love that the lower branches are the oldest, but they're there for the children to play on. And the upper branches are the most gentle and can move with the wind and show the maturity of how we age with grace.
That's beautiful. Wow. And we'll mention this later, but we're actually going to be at a place called the Copper Beech Institute on Saturday. So we'll announce it at the end, but that's that's perfect. Beautiful.
Hello, my name's Lillian, and I'd like to share about my tree. I drew the most beautiful tree in the Berkshires, and that's a hard tree to establish because we have so many beautiful ones. But this is one that grows along a roadside, and you will have all driven past it many, many times. And to me, it's kind of like, I don't even know what kind of tree it is, but it's like a ghost gum tree a little bit. Anyway, the roots are as flourishing as the branches. And the thing I wanted to say about this tree is that it is a winter tree. And it's a winter tree not because it's in hibernation, but it's a winter tree because of the stage of life that I'm in, which is forest dweller stage of life in terms of the Vedas. So my tree is a winter sun. So its energy is it's harvesting its wisdom, and it has its wisdom to share, and it has a lot of reciprocity, and it is yeah. So that's it. It's a winter sun, and it's it's a sharing tree, and it's a nourishing tree.
Wow, that's really powerful. Very, thank you.
Just, oh, my name is Lisa. Hello. Um, After hearing these three women about their trees, my tree, which is a weeping katsura, similar to a willow, there were so many things that all of you said that added up to my tree. I did discover in what I drew that there is as much in the root system as there is in the branches. I think I do feel as nourished in a way most of the time, just because of where things are in my life and that stage of life. So I feel fortunate about that. But it is a late spring, just leaves emerging, weeping katsura.
Wow, that's amazing. And how special all of you shared that your roots are healthy in comparison to the branches. It's a very unique, yeah, it's very special. We often see that people have very short roots compared to the branches, but so it's really nice to hear this.
A long question. Any suggestions for those of us that have to add branches in order to allow for more roots? For example, I needed to take a second job to have the money for travel and more long-term adventure. This felt worth it to me to be able to take the adventures away from home, but I recognize that more branches in the past 10 years has led to more burnout. My tree is in the fall because I have really been about reducing my branches if they do not serve a clear and thoughtful purpose for me. How do we keep these ideas about roots at the forefront of our decision making?
That's a great question. Thank you. Well, I'm sure Samantha will add to this as well, but I would start by saying that your roots don't have to be things that cost money. So number one, responding directly to the question about having more roots to be able to afford the travel. I mean, travel fills me up as well. I love travel. And what does travel bring you? That new perspective, that awe, that excitement, at least for me and maybe for this person as well. And so how could you go to a new place in your town or a new coffee shop or go to a new hike? Or there's things that you could do to nourish that core of what it's bringing you that maybe doesn't necessarily need to add more branches, i.e. more money to do that. And I would also say that one of the ways to use this tool, and it's in the book if you want to reference it and come back to it, is to do this seasonally or when there's some transition in your life or when you're feeling that you have an opportunity to expand or contract in, whether it's a new job or a new role or a new area of your life or literally going into a new season, because it allows you to look at kind of that snapshot of in time now, how am I in terms of my giving and all the roles that I'm playing? And how am I nurturing? And you can see it. You can see it when you draw it. That's what's so beautiful about this exercise. And it will change. Your tree, just like a tree, is changing all the time. There may be a storm that takes down a branch and stuff happens and that's difficult, but the tree heals. And in the same way, we then come back to that in a different way. And so the practice of bringing this perspective of balance continuously can really help us catch ourselves before we go into burnout, because that's the whole point of this framework, is recognizing the signs before we go off balance. Do you want to add anything? No? Okay, great. Any other comments on this exercise? And actually, I think we are opening it up to questions now as well. So questions about anything that we shared or the exercise or the framework or the map? Any questions?
Just have a little fight first. So I want to thank you first. This is an extraordinarily well thought out Rootsilience map tool, set of practices, protocols. I mean, this is immediately usable and it is a massive missing piece. We get told all the time about what burnout symptoms are. And you can sit for 3 hours in slide presentations. And the last slide will be, don't drink too much alcohol, remember to breathe and try to sleep. Well, how do you do that? So this is an incredible resource because it is really as a guide. It's is what I call kind of the void in this space of growth and resilience. I was curious, my question is really more about in terms of I can't remember if it was the map, what the behavior, physical, and
Emotional.
emotional. Thank you. I work a lot with thought. Thought is one of the greatest barriers to peace within our being because of the power of thought to blow up our peace. So I just wondered if it's too late to add, but thought is managing our thoughts, noticing our thoughts, notice and naming thoughts. That's a practice that actually has helped me grow some branches. So I just wanted to share that.
That's beautiful. Well, Lillian, first of all, thank you for your comment, and it means a lot. And I know you also do some really powerful work in this space. So thank you for what you shared. And I would say that the thought, the whole crown chakra chapter, which we start from the top down. Actually, we didn't mention that. So most chakra practices go from the roots up, but we actually go from the top down, partly because we're so in our heads, we're not grounded. And so we need to pave a way down. But in the crown chakra, it's all about connection and purpose. And one of the things that we explore is who is the voice in the head? If you can hear it, you're not the voice in your head. And so the difference between ego and ego not being a bad thing, but that beyond, what is that space beyond? And we explore the topic of spirit consciousness, that which is greater than us. And so I encourage folks to look at chapter 2 in the book, which is all about the crown chakra. You would love it. Yeah, thank you. Any other questions?
Anybody else that I missed? Covered it, I guess.
Well, I encourage you all to please take your Rootsilience leadership map. It's on our website. You can go to the last slide. It's just rootsilience.com. It's like resilience, which is a hard word to spell to begin with, and Rootsilience, it's spelled here. And the QR code takes you right to the map, right? The book, to the book. And the map you can take whether you have the book or not. If you're here, we have some copies of the book if you are interested. If you're on the webinar, you can get it anywhere you buy your books. It's available on Amazon and Barnes & Noble and Bookshop. And we are going to be at Copper Beach on Saturday.
Well, we're doing a half-day retreat at Copper Beach Institute in West Hartford. Julia, your Copper Beach tree, I'm sure will be there. So that's this coming Saturday, March 16th from 1 to 5 p.m. Yeah.
Thursday. So
yeah, absolutely.
On Thursday evening at the Lenox Community Center at 7 o'clock, 6 o'clock, our wonderful authors will be doing another presentation of their book through an organization called Walking Our Talk, which is a women's organization that Samantha and I are deeply involved with. And they'll be going deeper again, and we'll be separating into groups and working in circles and sharing and going through some specific exercises and then coming back together as a whole. So if there's something else you want to get from this in a group with the authors, there is an ad in the Berkshire Eagle today that talks about it. And there's also some handouts over here if you're interested in going even deeper in person.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ooh, oh, geez, I was under a speaker. I'm so sorry. Thank you both so much. And we're so glad that you were here and able to share both your stories and your work with us. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for those online.